Hello, Dirt Road Believers. It is Thursday's edition of Dirt Road Believer. I have got an exciting devotion today that could not be more relevant. I mean, it's like this word was written like for 2021. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a little bit. But welcome. I am Tina. If you're new to Dirt Road Believer, I'm so glad you're here. It is beautiful outside. Things are turning green. It's like 82 degrees. It feels wonderful. I got this sun chair, my sunning chair, a while back, but this is the first time I have used it. So I'm enjoying being outdoors. Okay, so here's what I heard today, and I hope you will check it out. I'm going to go check it out. If you haven't already heard, there is an app called The Chosen. And if you download that app, you can stream it to your TV. The Chosen is a series. I want to say it's going to be like 8 seasons, and it takes you through the life of Christ. It's done by an American director. His name is Dallas Jenkins. He is the son of Jerry Jenkins, who did the Left Behind series. I just heard about it today from some friends. It sounds fantastic. I cannot wait to see it. But what they were really commenting on was how much insight you get. And they were talking about all the little side stories you get of people that in the Bible they don't really develop anymore or explore anymore. You just see them briefly. But in this, they go into the lives of other people you may be curious about. And I love that, because isn't that how we read the Bible? With our own, well, I wonder about this, and we assume, well, this must have happened because he said this, or they must have known each other from previously. So this sort of connects the dots, and of course, no one can be sure if it's completely accurate because we weren't there. But I think it's fascinating to see the word through somebody else's eyes, somebody else's perspective. So, way to go, Dallas Jenkins. I can't wait to check it out. Alright, guys, we are going to be getting into the devotion right about We were on vacation recently, if you follow, you know that. And we were walking down the street with our other family that we were with, just in a downtown area. And we get to a I guess it was like a caution light, but there's several people kind of gathered on this corner, kind of moving around, going to different stores and stuff. And we look out, and standing in the street is a little girl who looked to be 3, maybe 4, and she is fully clothed in the Anna Princess costume from Frozen. And so it was funny, the reaction, because all the adults saw it. All the adults standing on that corner saw this little girl in the street by herself, but only one person, my friend Carrie, had the sense enough to immediately, come here to me, okay? And she did. She came on over and she was safe. But I know why no one else was saying anything, because it's the same thing that was going through my head. I'm looking around trying to figure out who this child's parents are, because I don't want to offend them. How dare I try to save someone's child on their watch, you know? And I think that's where we are in our culture, and we have been for some time. Before we act, before we say anything, we choose our words so carefully. Well, most of us choose our words and our actions so carefully, because lest we offend someone. And guys, this is nothing new. I mean, I know now we have different politically correct terms, but it was no different back in Jesus' day. And we are learning from John today. We are in John chapter 6, and we're going to start in verse 60. But I just want to catch you up to what Jesus has just taught on. Now, we know Jesus had 12 apostles, but he had many disciples, right? So there were lots of people who followed Jesus that were outside of his 12 closest apostles. You hear Georgie over there? She's so Jesus has just talked to his disciples on, I'm the bread of life. Eat of me. Okay, when someone says, eat my flesh, that causes people to go, maybe he is crazy. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be following this Jesus fella. Because think of it, this is totally outside of anything they have ever heard of before. And so the disciples, the headliner here above this little section of chapter 6 says, many disciples desert Jesus. Why? Because he just said, eat of my flesh. So I'm starting in verse 60. It says, therefore, when many of his disciples heard this, they said, this teaching is hard. Who can accept it? Jesus, knowing in himself that his disciples were complaining about this, asked them, does this offend you? Then what if you were to observe the Son of Man ascending to where he was before? The Spirit is the one who gives life. The flesh doesn't help at all. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and are life. But there are some among you who don't believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning those who did not believe and the one who would betray him. He said, this is why I told you that no one can come to me unless it is granted by the Father. From that moment, many of his disciples turned back and no longer accompanied him. So Jesus said to the 12, you don't want to go away too, do you? All right, I'm going to stop right there. So first, these disciples say, this teaching is hard. Well, guess what? It's still hard. There are things in this word, guys, that are hard. They're hard to accept. They're hard to calibrate our lives to. It is not always going to be an easy teaching. And then Jesus Jesus says something here that we would say. Um, if this offends you, well, how about me ascending into heaven? Is that going to offend you? Because that is outside of anything you have ever seen, you've ever experienced, you've ever even thought of. Is that going to offend you too? And I love that he uses the word offend, because to me that's the part of this teaching today that is just so relevant to what we experience as just people in our culture today. We hear this word offend so frequently. In that story that I told you about the little girl out in the street, I just admire my friend Carrie so much, because she didn't stop to think, who am I going to offend? She saw a life in danger and she did something to help. And as believers, I see that so clearly. We walk past people every day and we see that their lives are in danger, they're in harm's way, and they're unaware a lot of times. I dare to say that most people are not bad people or evil people or wicked people. They're just preoccupied. They're just out in the middle of oncoming cars and not even realizing it. And so as believers, do we, if I say anything they might be offended, or what if they already have a church? Or we've got to get past, are we going to offend someone? Jesus himself says, does this offend you? Because if this offends you, then me ascending to the throne is really gonna wreck you. One of the things that he goes on to say is, the words that I have spoken to you are spirit and are life. When he was talking about eating of his flesh, this hard teaching that he gave his disciples, he says, the words that I have spoken to you are spirit and are life. In other words, you are to partake of my spirit every day. That's where your source of life comes from. I want to leave you with this. You have been approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And let's not use it to please people, but to please God, because he is the one that examines our hearts. I'm going to leave you with that. And on that note, I want to say have a great weekend. And until next week, slow down. Take the dirt road, believer.